Welcome back to another episode of Broke Up, Not Broke In. If you're going through a divorce, don't worry, you're not alone. This is your one-stop shop for mastering your life and your finances throughout the entire divorce process. In today's episode, we have the pleasure of hosting Phyllis Leavitt, an acclaimed author and psychotherapist. I don't know if we have any psychotherapists on the show just yet, so this is going to be awesome. Phyllis brings a unique blend of psychological insights and spiritual wisdom to the complex journey of self-discovery. Today, we're going to dive into how her approaches can support those undergoing major life transitions, such as divorce, helping them find deeper meaning and a renewed purpose. So listen, if you're feeling overwhelmed by your divorce or your current station in life, please don't be. Phyllis is here to help us break it down so you can feel confident and prepared by creating a clearer picture of not only your financial situation, but how you can tackle some of the personal challenges that you might be facing as well. So grab a cup of coffee or your beverage of choice, buckle up. Let's once again get you personally and financially empowered. Phyllis, amazing to have you here with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to talk with you. I've been through a divorce myself, so we're all in the school of hard knocks together.
Absolutely. I think that's how we learn the best, right? So maybe tell me a little bit about, if you're open to it, maybe share a little bit about your experience and how you got through yours. Because I know there's a lot of people out there that are in the throes of it, that are listening right now, and they're just wondering, like, when is this ever going to be over, and how am I going to be able to?
Right. Well, as I said to you earlier, I would have loved to have known about you when I went through the divorce that I did, which was really quite a long time ago. I got divorced in the late 80s. And so, we didn't have kind of a lot of the wisdom that we have now about how to navigate divorce, or at least I wasn't exposed to it. So yeah, it was rocky. It was really rough. It was not what I wanted. I mean, I actually initiated the divorce, but I never pictured that. I thought I would be married forever and I'd have an intact family and we'd live happily ever after. And that did not happen, as it doesn't for so many people. But I would say, I want to say something hopeful, because as rocky and rough as it was, and I had 3 children at the time who were fairly small, there's light at the end of the tunnel. There can be light at the end of the tunnel. A lot of really good growth and development can happen after a divorce if we're willing to look at, what led up to the divorce. What were the things that I brought to the marriage that maybe weren't so functional, that came out of my own wounding as a child, that I reenacted with my partner and my partner reenacted with me. And so, I did a lot of therapy after I got divorced, and it really was life-changing for me. And for anybody out there who's in the pit of it, I want to tell you, I'm in a really wonderful marriage now. So it's possible to really find light at the end of that tunnel. So I just wanted to present that, because at the time it was really rough.
I can concur. I've since remarried, and it has been a very different experience than the first go around. But when I was in the throes of it, it felt like it was never going to end. And in some respects, it still hasn't. I mean,
that's right.
Especially with having kids and everything else together, it can make it a little more challenging. And unfortunately, it may never go away. Right.
Right. Yeah, I think, that's really, really true. Like I said, I had 3 children, and in some ways it doesn't ever go away, but I can get better. You can get better. We can get better. And that's the beauty of it, that it can be, like I said, it can be an amazing growth opportunity, and grab that, because if you've had the strength to leave something behind that really wasn't healthy for you, then that strength can be rechanneled into redirecting your life in a much more positive, healthy relationship way.
Are there any particular steps that one can take to do that? Because I've talked to so many people that, like even in your situation, I'm going to just venture to guess it was probably challenging, and you're stressful, and you have all these emotions that you're dealing with and so on, and you're just kind of in this quagmire. But a lot of the people that we've talked to, and including yourself, have been able to like rise above that and pull yourself out of that. And it's so much easier when you're 5, 10, 20 years past that, right? To talk about it. Like,
right.
I did it. And here I am but when you're in the throes of it, man, it can be challenging. And then layering in all the financial stresses that come with it. And what are we going to do about that? I have to keep writing a check to my attorney, and it never ends. So are there specific steps that you can take, or like mindset shifts that you can make to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's some things that I wish I had been more aware of myself at the time. I did get a lot of support. I went to therapy. I had some very good friends that I could count on. And I think it is really important not to go through it alone and not to feel like you have to hide your pain or hide your grief or whatever, but to really find people who are safe and really supportive. And like you, people who actually know what they're talking about, who've been through it, who have really good advice, who have good experience, find those people. So that would be one thing. I would say for many people, especially with a first marriage, we're attracted to people who aren't necessarily the right partner. I think it's really lucky for people if they hit the jackpot the first time around. But for many people who have unresolved emotional issues or childhood trauma or not such good family role models growing up of what relationship could look like, that often we're just attracted to what we already know. And I know that was true for me. It's an unconscious thing. We're just still trying to get love from the people that maybe didn't give it to us very well or didn't give it to us at all, or even for people who might have had child abuse. Often we're attracted to people who have something similar to what hurt us. And these are very unconscious impulses that are very well known in the world of psychology and psychotherapy, because we go to what's familiar, even if we didn't like it, which is very odd to say, but it's often true. So I think really doing some personal work is really helpful. If you have any opportunity to talk to a therapist or be in a divorce support group or in some place where you can get input from the outside that can give you perspective, it's really important to have supportive people in your life because it's a trauma. I think divorce is a trauma. And most people don't get married thinking they are going to get divorced or that they would ever want a divorce, because we get married thinking we're going to be in love and it's going to work out. And it just often isn't true because many of us bring our very unhealed wounds to the relationship. So if you've gotten to the point where the marriage is no longer tenable, I would say, if you have any opportunity to do some work on yourself, do it, because it can also set the stage for making a better relationship the next time. And it can also set the stage for being able to really handle what your children are going through if you have children, because divorce is a trauma for them too. As a therapist of many, many years, in the beginning of my practice, I worked exclusively with children. And I can tell you now that 99% of the children that were referred to me were suffering from either a conflictual divorce or a home in which the parents were on the verge of divorce or highly conflictual in the home. And children really do suffer. And sometimes when you're in your own pain of going through a divorce, it's hard to factor what your children are going through, because you can be really possessed with your own feelings and just trying to cope yourself. But children, and many children they react in different ways. Some children get really upset and they overtly really need help. And some children sort of can seem like they're totally okay, but they're not, because their feelings are a little bit more underground. So one thing that's really important is to pay attention to what's going on for your children and talk to them. And if they need somebody to talk to or be in a support group, there's support groups for kids sometimes. One story I was going to share was one of the children that I saw whose parents were divorced. His parents got divorced when he was 2. He was 10 when I saw him. His mom and dad were both remarried. And his main issue was still that he wished his mom and dad were together. And that was 8 years later. So don't underestimate, what the impact is on your children, and make sure you really pay attention to that.
And I presume they feel the pain from the financial stress too, right?
Oh, absolutely. They feel the pain of the financial stress. They feel the pain of sometimes having to move to a different school district, or one parent has significantly less money after the divorce. And so there's so many changes. Sometimes parents remarry other people who have other children, or they have other children with another partner. And then there's the stress of a step family. You're smiling, all of these things are very common, and they do really require a lot of care.
What are some of the things that people can do to help the kids through that?
I think there's one of the big things is to do your best not to talk ill of your partner, your ex-partner, in front of your children, because that person is still their parent. And that doesn't mean if your ex-partner has some serious problems going on, if they drink too much, or they're not, they're not taking good care of the kids in some way, that you don't address that. But to not just badmouth your ex in front of your kids, because they have a bond to that person, and it puts them in a very jeopardized position where sometimes children feel like they have to choose. Or, I saw it all in my practice. I had a little 5-year-old who was overtly told by one of his parents that he was not allowed to talk about what happened at the other home. And with that parent, and it devastated this child because he came home happy. He came home happy. He had a new little brother, and he wanted to be able to share his joy about his brother. And so what happened for him is that he became really anxious and started talking baby talk and regressed because he was carrying a load that he couldn't carry. And so it's really important not to put our issues on our children. And it's really hard. Sometimes when you're suffering, you just want to get it out. So, I have empathy for that because I went through it myself. But children are very, very sensitive. So if it's possible to preserve a good relationship with the ex-partner for the children's sake, do it.
How do you maintain that sense of integrity, though? Because it's so, I was smiling earlier because everything you're mentioning so far, I've had a little bit of experience with, and including
me too,
including parental and grandparental alienation of the kids, which is a topic you and I could probably spend another 30 or 45 minutes on.
Sure,
and the damage that goes along with that. But it's so hard to maintain that sense of integrity when you're in the middle of it.
And that's why I say it is really hard. And I can tell you, I didn't always do that. We're human. And when people are in pain, we're just not always at our best. So have compassion for yourself, for sure. I don't know anybody who does it perfectly. And I had people come to me, couples come to me who were divorcing and wanted help navigating how to handle their children. And it was still really hard. Even though they were seeking active help to do that, because we're just very emotional beings, and pain can run really deep, and it expresses itself. So you do your best. And sometimes if you slip up, you tell your kids, I'm really sorry I said that. I shouldn't have said that to you. I know you love your dad, or I know you love your mom. And the divorce is between us. Nobody is divorcing you. Unless your children have been abandoned, which sometimes they are. And then you get to talk about that. I think what I would say the key to integrity is being truthful without being hurtful.
You might want to say that again, because that was pretty profound.
Yeah, I think the key to integrity is being truthful without being hurtful. And of course, there's some truths that don't need to be said. If you have a 5-year-old and you're getting divorced because your ex had an affair, they don't need to know that. So it's also being sensitive to the age of your children and what's appropriate to say to a 5-year-old or a 17-year-old they're different.
Yeah, I see this happen all the time. Unfortunately, parents bring in the kids and it's inappropriate or whatever. Luckily, I don't know. We don't play the role that you do. Right. Like you're there, you're in the room with the kids, you're having conversations with the family and the kid and the children, and you're trying to help them sort all the emotional aspects of that. We just handle the financial stuff, but
right.
We hear enough in conversation, and we can also tell sometimes based on the client, how they behave towards their ex. Like you can we've been around the block a little while, so you can start to see, some of these things, and it's just sad. I think all together, it's just one of my biggest things is really pushing for mediation and trying to keep everybody out of the courts and try to remove all that conflict. Right. And I know that's one area we, as we were preparing for our discussion today, that was one of the things you brought up was like, handling negotiations and trying to maintain a level of integrity there and so on. Can you speak at all to that? Because I think we're on the same wavelength as far as trying to get the divorce finalized and try to keep it out of the courts as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, I think for me, at one point, it was important to get a lawyer. And one of the things that did help me with was that I had a hard time talking to my ex especially about financial things. That was probably the hottest button. And it just helped to have somebody in between, so that we didn't have to have that conversation ourselves. So I think that's one really powerful, not like somebody's trying to take somebody to the cleaners or hurt them financially, but with a mediator or a lawyer, sometimes it's really important not to have direct contact alone with your ex if there's a lot of hostility. And it can be really helpful to have somebody in the middle. So that's one thing that I would say. And then the other thing I would say is, see if there's a compromise you can reach more and more quickly. Because the quicker you get out of the hostility and the fighting and and just the vibes that are in the air around that, the more you help yourself, start to move away from the marriage and also help your kids not be caught in the middle of it. And one thing that I just want to throw in here is that children are very, very perceptive. They may not tell you what they perceive, but they're very perceptive. And they're going to make their own relationship with you and with their ex for the rest of for the rest of their lives. And they see what's going on. I had a little child tell me, I don't know how old he was, maybe 10 or 12, tell me, I see how my dad treats my mom. And he treats his new girlfriend so much better than he treated my mom. So that we don't have to tell them. They see who we are. So, do you kind of get what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to tell your children if you don't like what your partner's doing sometimes, because they see it for themselves and they're going to make their own relationship. And if we're really bringing up our kids to honor themselves and speak their own truth, without harm, and acknowledge their own feelings and ask for what they need and try to give it to them, they're going to create a healthy relationship in their own right, with your ex-partner and with the other people in their life. And they're more likely to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think not only are they very perceptive, but they're very adaptable. I mean, the kids are very adaptable, and as long as they're going through the process that they're going through, and that is, like, I share the story all the time where my now wife, like her experience was so much like the polar opposite of my experience in the divorce. Mine was very contentious and very expensive, and there was an argument about everything at every turn, not by my own doing, but because that was like, let's use the legal system to just beat it out of them is ultimately what I got. Whereas on her side, it was, we'll just go down to the courthouse and they'll help us fill out these forms and we can file all these documents and we're done. And that was it. And, wow. And their kids are like, well, everybody's well adjusted, and like, it's just a completely different experience. Right. But there is that level of adaptation that I've seen with the kids. Right. Once they know, like, hey, everything's going to be okay. And I think that's the biggest takeaway for me is, like, the kids all know that, even though this, like, we all went through this, they're going to be okay. And I think that's, it took some time, but that was what I've seen kind of through the progression of this whole thing on my side.
And I would say part of what really helps kids be okay, going back to the story I said about that little boy, is that they really need overt permission to love everybody. If they love your ex and they love your ex's new partner and they like your ex's new kids, they have to be allowed to do that. Mm-hmm. And because it really, really tears children apart when they feel like it's going to hurt one parent if they care for the other one.
Yeah.
And I've seen that happen over and over and over again.
Yeah. It's tragic, but I've seen it firsthand myself, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So we have I'm going to ask you a question that came up in our Facebook group the other day, which is the Facebook group is called Preparing Financially for Divorce. You should join us there. We were now at 7. We just started this a couple months ago. We've got 700 people in there. By the time this thing airs, I think we're probably going to have about 1,000. So this will be like we're growing, which is amazing. It's just an opportunity for us to share as much free financial guidance as we possibly can to the masses. But one of the questions was, what advice do you have for someone looking to achieve long-term financial stability and peace after the divorce is finalized? I thought the word peace, I picked up on the word peace. So I think that's one of the bigger things, right? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I let you tell me if this is helpful. So when I got divorced, I had a really hard time getting child support from my ex. And he really fought me on that. And he kind of did everything in his power to give me as little as possible. And I had just gotten out of graduate school. I was completing graduate school, and I had gotten a job at a place that I had done an internship. And at one point, when I was just really upset about the finances, I just switched gears. And it wasn't just a one-day thing. I mean, I had to repeat this in myself, but like it was a process. But the gears that I switched were, I was grateful that I had a job that I loved. I was grateful that I had enough money to support my kids, that my parents gave me the down payment for a house, which was stupendous, Mm-hmm. And so I just started to try to live in gratitude for what I did have. And I did get an attorney, and I got the best that I could get, which was almost nothing. And then I had to be at peace with that because, there's some battles that we just don't win. And I think it is really important to find a place of acceptance. It may not be what we wanted, but if you've done everything that you can do to affect an agreement that you think is fair and that you think is honest on your part, and it doesn't work out that way, then, really do everything you can to take care of yourself. Yeah. and be grateful if you can, and look for the supports that you can get.
Yeah.
Because there's a point at which you just have to let go,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So self-care and going through this exercise is, no pun intended on the word exercise, but I mean, there's something to be said about it. And you had mentioned something earlier in our conversation when you were talking about like almost like a level of PSD that you can get from going through a divorce. And I feel like I have that, even in my own divorce. Absolutely. And it's a matter of just, trying to exercise and eat healthy and get rest and surround yourself with loved ones and all those things that you possibly can do. Like they sound like, pie in the sky sometimes when you say them out loud, but they're so incredibly important. And I call it creating Team You. We talk about this all the time. I put it in create Team You, like your therapist, your financial person, your attorney if you need one, your divorce coach, your family and friends, your whomever, like your religious support groups, like all those people that are out there that can help you. And you need you need to surround yourself with that village to be able to get through it.
Right. And one thing that I 100% agree with everything you just said. And I would just say, and if you still feel down, it's normal. I mean, I read somewhere, I remember back in the day when I got a divorce, that for the average person, it takes at least 2 years to get over the worst of it. So if you're down and you feel depressed, or, you're still struggling, even with a lot of support, it's normal. And just try to have compassion for yourself and know that it's not going to last forever, because it won't.
Yeah. You have to have that grace, right? That's the one thing that I have to keep trying to tell myself, when the days get long, right? So you're an author, right? And which is something that I aspire to be one of these days. So tell listeners about the book and some of the content in it. I know it's maybe like tie it into how we got to be here today, right? And have this conversation about divorce and finances and the emotional aspects of things as we go through.
Well, the book that I just wrote is called America in Therapy. Is that the book you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah. So I wrote a book called America in Therapy, a new approach to hope and healing for a nation in crisis. And basically what I did was take everything, and I had this idea a long time ago. I felt really inspired to write a book that takes everything that I've learned as a therapist about family dynamics and human relations and apply that to how we're looking at the family of America. And because all the groupings of people that we're in operate on family dynamics, and they either operate on healthy family dynamics where people care about each other and they are committed to nonviolent communication and acceptance and valuing of each other and supporting each other to be their highest good, for their highest good, and really to working out conflict as much as humanly possible, or separating in peace. And so that goes for the divorce end of it, is that you really can't work it out. Try to get to a place where you can just separate in peace without, leaving a trail of devastation behind you with yourself, your finances, your house, your kids, whatever. So that's what this current book really looks at America through the lens of what are the dynamics in our country that are unhealthy. And how are we treating some of the members of our American family? And this really applies all over the world, but I talk about America in ways that are deleterious, just like when families are dysfunctional, that their individual members are hurt or, impaired by the dynamics that are going on. And one of the many, many, many things that I talk about is that I think a lot of families today, and you probably see this with a lot of the divorces that you work with, people are under inordinate stress beyond the family, with their jobs, with school shootings, with discrimination, with not having enough access to health care, or, all the things that families need. Families need a lot of support in the culture that we live in today. And unfortunately, we don't live in a family of America that's really, I think, deeply committed to the welfare of families, getting, families therapy, paying people a living wage, providing really high level child care, upgrading our educational system, access to medical care for everybody. And so some of those stressors, implode right into the marriage and on the kids. And I think that's something that's not any one person's fault, but I think that we have to know that that's some of the pressure that families are under today, and that couples relationships are under, that can just make it really hard to have a sustainable relationship.
Yeah. And it's not going to get any easier, I don't think, not with, here we are on social media, and a lot of it's driven by social media, but
right.
It's just things have changed even in the last 10 years. I think it's just been, I watch my kids go through it, like, the challenges they face in high school,
right.
And which is, it's awful.
It's awful.
You couldn't pay me $1 million to go back to high school these days.
I know.
Pay me $1 million.
I know. And it was hard when I was a kid, but it was nothing like it is today. The social pressures are, and then the kids bring those home, and then parents have to deal with that too. And when you've had different upbringings as parents, and you have different role models for relationship and boys and girls and all of that, and then you try to parent together, it can be really, really hard.
Yeah. How do people get in touch with you to be able to, get access to the wealth of information that you have, and, or if not, hire you as, from a therapeutic perspective, but, maybe get access to your book as well?
Yeah, I'm not in practice anymore, but I'm very happy to talk to anybody who, just wants to download or have some advice or whatever. So the best place to reach me is on my website, which is www.phyllisleavitt.com. You can contact me there. You can buy any of my books from any major booksellers. And I'm on all the, Facebook, LinkedIn. I have lots of blogs and articles. I have lots of interviews on YouTube. And I'm really, and I have a free PDF PDF on, and this would, I think, might be really helpful for anybody going through divorce. I have a free PDF available through contacting me on my website, which is called The 6 Secrets to Repairing Relationship After Conflict. And it's really, and when you were talking about integrity, I didn't mention this, but let me say this now. I think the best integrity that we can bring to a conflict, and most people going through a divorce have some level of conflict, if not a lot, is focusing on your own personal responsibility in it. Who do I want to be? How do I want to behave no matter what you do, no matter what you say? Can I hold to my own principles of integrity? Speaking in I statements, not attacking your character, really examining where I'm coming from. What are the wounds that I might bring to this that I could begin to heal? Am I open to compromise? Do I actually really want resolution, or do I just want to make you the bad guy forever? Because these are things that come up. You're smiling, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're all these amazing nuggets of information, and it's like you have a window into my life for some reason. Where you like we didn't know each other before this call, but I feel like you've known me for 5 or 7 years now, because a lot of stuff that you're talking about, definitely some experiences that I've had.
Yeah. Well, and because I think they actually are universal. They really are. I think that we're human. And I think that's the thing that I keep remembering. And I have to remind myself, I'm human. I didn't do it perfectly. I don't do it perfectly now, but I have better tools to come back to. I really can apologize if I'm in the wrong. And I think that's a big one. I mean, a lot of us didn't learn that. We're just waiting for the other person to admit they're wrong, instead of just really focusing on how do I want to be? And that also is one of the greatest gifts we can give our children.
Yeah. All amazing information and great conversation today. Thank you so much, Phyllis, for sharing your profound insights and guiding lights with us today. I'm going to call them guiding lights, because there's so much that's out there that can lead the pathway forward for us. So for those eager to delve deeper into Phyllis's work or seeking any guidance on your own spiritual journey, visit her website. We're going to put the links up, her Facebook. She's on all the socials, guys. She has all of them. So we're going to put them out there for you in the show notes, so you can access her information. Maybe get that book, get that free PDF that she offered through the website.
I really want to share it. That's why it's free on my website.
Yeah, totally.
It's also a chapter in my book. It's one of the chapters in my book as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, go get that book, go get that PDF. And if you're facing any challenges from a financial perspective in your own divorce, remember that we're here to help at Allegiant Divorce Solutions. You can go to allegiantds.com for more resources. And of course, book a call with us. We have a team of experts that are here to guide you through this process. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more enriching conversations. And until next time, keep seeking understanding and peace on your own journey.